All right, I think we have a good amount of people that we can go ahead and get started. And I am recording already, so we'll just get to it. But hello, everyone. My name is Carissa Sorensen. Thank you so much for being here today. Hopefully you're in the right place. This is Let's Get Personal, Crafting Graduate School Statements. Just to kind of formally introduce myself, I'm the director of the Social Sciences Academic Resource Center, and today I will be providing this presentation for you. So let's go ahead. Oh, and if you're wondering what this is a wadded paper, most likely your first, second, third draft of your statements. So I thought that was kind of fun. But just a little bit about today's agenda. So we have much in store for you. First, we're going to be diving into what is a personal statement and what is a statement of purpose and how do they differ from one another. We'll also be brainstorming and outlining some example prompts. And then I will also be providing additional tips and resources before we have our featured Q&A with PhD candidate Lingo Leon. So I'm super excited about that. And again, Lingo, thank you so much for joining us today. If you have any questions throughout our time together, please submit them through the Zoom Q&A feature, which is located at the bottom of your screen. We'll actually be addressing all your questions at the very end. All right. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. But before I actually got into personal statements and statement of purpose, just kind of want to provide an overall foundation about graduate programs. So most likely why you're here at this webinar is because you are intending to apply to graduate school. And you may already know that to apply to graduate programs of your choice, you'll not only have to submit a transcript, standardized test scores like the GRE, for example, also recommendation letters, but also a personal statement and or a statement of purpose. Now, both statements essentially serve the same overarching purpose. It's really to communicate to the admissions committee that you're a good fit and will be successful in the program in which you are applying to. Now, while some programs or schools may consider the personal statement and statement of purpose two different essays or two distinct essays, other universities or programs use the names interchangeably. So ultimately, the type of graduate school essay you submit will really just depend entirely on where you're applying to. So be sure to read those instructions and those prompts carefully. All right. So let's go ahead and go on to our first topic. So let's talk a little bit more about personal statements. So essentially, your personal statement is the opportunity for the admissions committee to learn more about the unique qualities and perspectives that you will bring to the program. So essentially, it's about reflecting. It's about looking back at your past experiences and really explaining who you are as a person. So to kind of dwindle that down in terms of, okay, well, what do I need to be talking about in my personal statement? We've provided kind of a general focus on the right-hand side. So things that you should be focusing on in this particular statement. So essentially your motivation for entering this field. So why? Right? Any relevant life experiences or struggles or accomplishments. And of course, personal reasons for maybe choosing your program or your degree and expected contributions to the program. I also went ahead and included two example prompts. I actually got these directly from two different graduate programs, so I'll go ahead and read those off. So the first one is an example, of course, of personal statement. Discuss any matters relevant to your ability to exceed in X program and any attributes, experiences, or interests that would enable you to make a distinctive contribution to X program. The second, please discuss how your personal background, including any relevant educational, familial, cultural, economic, or social experiences, challenges, or opportunities that informs your decision to pursue X degree. Those are a mouthful, right? But let's go ahead and brainstorm on how you can kind of go about and outlining some specific details and topics for your personal statement. All right. So essentially, these are just a few questions that you can kind of consider as you get started with your personal statement. So Overall, you just want to answer, what do I want the admissions committee to know about me? And this is as it relates to the prompts that you've been provided through that particular program. So some really great questions to ask yourself is, first, what do I value? So perhaps you might be interested in helping others or serving your community, ensuring that individuals have the right in receiving an education, or you're very interested in social justice issues. So these are all specific examples that you can provide to answer that question. What do I value? The second question to reflect on is, what or who motivates me? So perhaps you just have this love of learning. Maybe you're the eldest in your family. Maybe you have lots of additional family responsibilities to take care of, and family's a very big value of yours, or what motivates you the most. Maybe you enjoy solving problems or being a change maker to hopefully one day shape public good. These are all prime examples of what can motivate you. So hopefully you're starting to kind of think about how you would answer these questions. The next question would be, what challenges have you faced? So perhaps you face some barriers as a first generation student navigating the university system, or perhaps you've taken on multiple jobs to be able to pay for various expenses. And these could be all examples of challenges or barriers you may have faced during your time at UCI, or just in general during your lifetime. Now, with personal statements, or just statement of purpose in general, it's really all about breaking the prompt down. So you probably remember those prompts that we previously said in the first slide. It was a big mouthful. So it's really all about thinking about those questions, those implicit questions that they're trying to ask you. Now, statements are typically anywhere from 500 to 1,000 words. It could be also 1 to 2 pages, 11 or 12-point font you may want to stick to. And then if the program requests that it be double spaced, then make sure that you adhere to that. But that's kind of generally what most programs ask for. But again, take a look at that specific program and what they're asking for. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to statements of purpose. All right, so a statement of purpose ultimately emphasizes what you want to study and what you plan to do with the degree you hope to earn. So essentially, personal statements was about reflecting back. Well, statement of purpose is all about looking forward, looking ahead into your future. So when drafting your statement of purpose, the general focus should be, what are your professional and academic backgrounds, your skills, your accomplishments, any professors that you wish to work with. Now, this will especially be important for PhD programs whom are mostly interested in what are your research interests and which professors do you want to work with. Another point is, why is this program a good fit for your interests, your academic goals, and your aspirations? So once again, I did 2 different example prompts, and I got these directly from 2 different graduate programs. The first is, please describe your career goals, your research interests, how and why you think the X program and its faculty can help you achieve your research and career goals. And what about your background experiences has prepared you to become an outstanding X professional? The second is, describe where you see yourself 5 years from now, or maybe it's 3 years from now, after you've graduated the X program. Where will you be working? What will your roles be? How will you have helped improve the profession? Discuss the leadership qualities you possess that will have contributed to these improvements. All right, so let's go ahead and brainstorm once more. All right, so a few questions to consider. So ultimate overall question is, what makes me a fit for this particular program? So the first question to consider is, why am I going into this field? Why am I specifically interested in this program? So an example could be, maybe what piques your interest in this program that you're applying to is that it actually requires practicum experience, or the curriculum itself involves community-based research. Maybe your passion for your chosen field is because you have that opportunity and that pathway to work in the nonprofit sector, and that's something that you're really interested in. And maybe you have an overarching goal of broadening equity through policy making, for example. Now, these are just hypothetical situations and ideas. Another question to consider is, what experiences have shaped me as a scholar and as a leader. So consider your time at UCI. What has been the kind of the breadth of your involvement? Perhaps you've been involved in research through your department's honors program, or maybe the campus-wide honors collegium. Maybe you previously interned for the US Department of Education in Washington, DC through UCDC, or you've held leadership positions through various clubs and organizations like Dean's Ambassadors Council or ASUCI. So all very much prime examples that you're most likely going to want to integrate into your statement of purpose. And then the last question is, how will I add value? So what will you contribute to this program? So perhaps it's going to be your passion for advocacy or providing a unique voice for marginalized groups. So think about, what that might be for yourself. Now, if you're still a little bit confused about what your grad school admissions essay should focus on, or what type of essay should I be writing, or what is required for my application, always contact the school or the program directly by email or by phone and get your questions clarified rather than kind of just assuming, okay? Which actually, this kind of brings me to my next point and onto my next slide, is just a few tips and resources that we're going to be sharing with you. Okay, so the first tip is doing your research. So what I mean by that is, reading all the instructions carefully, reading all the prompts, answering the specific prompts, and just knowing that no two programs are the same. So know exactly what the program is about. For example, you can identify what's the mission of that program, or perhaps where do alumni go after they graduate? What are they doing career-wise? This is all really important kind of information and research to learn more about these specific programs. The next tip is to tell a story, but most importantly, to tell your own story, right? So this shouldn't be an exhaustive list of your accomplishments or verbatim on your resume or your curriculum vitae. It should be able to share a little bit more information in depth, and hopefully your story will kind of be able to come through. The third tip is to provide specific examples. So for example, don't be afraid to include vivid descriptions of people, ideas, or events or emotions that you have had in your past. Be as specific and detailed as possible, or that you feel you're able to. The fourth tip is to write from a positive perspective and in an active voice. So being in an active voice kind of keeps your sentences clear and concise. And then this happens very often. I'm often reading many statements where students often talk negatively about themselves. Now, they don't do it on purpose, but there's certain words that they're using that kind of has that connotation. So be very careful and speak positively about yourself and other people or entities. I've often found that students, might maybe complain about their undergraduate program or institution or whatever it might be. And so those, you just want to keep it positive and light, or just, keep it out, right? And then the last tip, the fifth tip, is just to edit, and proofread as thoroughly as possible. So be sure that you're using spell check on your word, getting multiple people to review your statement, whether that's a friend or a professional staff member or even a faculty member. I've provided a few really helpful key resources on here, and don't worry, this PowerPoint will also be sent to everyone as well. So you'll be able to kind of click on this PDF of this slide deck and be able to click on these specific resources. But a few of those include our Division of Career Pathways, which is AKA our Career Center on campus. They also provide assistance with applying to graduate school. The other is the UC Center for Excellence in Writing and Communication, aka our Writing Center on campus. So they can specifically check more grammar and just structure of your actual statements. And then we also have the UCI Graduate and Postdoctoral Scholar Resource Center. So this is probably more of the lesser known of the two that I previously talked about, previously known as the Graduate Resource Center. They specifically cater to graduate students. However, during winter quarter, they also provide appointments to undergraduate students as well about the graduate school application process. So please do check them out as well. And then most importantly, your faculty, right? They have all had previous experience, even if it's not your actual professor, maybe it's just your TA. They're going through that experience currently, graduate school, or your professors have gone in the past. And so they can certainly provide you more important insight and feedback as well. So in addition to all these 4 resources, of course, another really great resource is us here at SARC, and we'll talk a little bit more specifically about how we as a center can help you with overall the graduate school process. But before I do that, we're actually going to go into our Q&A segment. And after our Q&A segment, then we'll open up the floor for your specific questions. But let's go ahead and show you a little bit more about the questions that we're going to be asking Lingo. Now, Lingo, we're going to go ahead and have you just introduce yourself. If maybe you can state your name, of course, your program, your year, maybe your role at SARC and where you completed your undergrad. And then we can go ahead into the specific questions that we have for you today. Sound good?
Yeah.
All right. Awesome.
Hi, everyone. I think I actually saw some of my students in the panel as well. So hi.
Awesome.
And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Lang O, and I will be a 6th year in the sociology department. So I'll be graduating actually after next year. And I actually been working with SARC since I was an undergrad at UCS. I've been working with SARC for a long time. And I also have appointments during the regular like school year. So like in the fall, spring, and winter, you can schedule appointments with me so we can talk about issues one-on-one as well. So yeah, so I mean, sociology, I mainly do research with gender and family and population. So yeah, should I just go ahead and answer the question or?
Well, sure, let me go ahead and ask the question, then you can go ahead and provide a response. So the first question is, let's see, what are some common mistakes you see in students' graduate school statements?
Okay, yeah, so I would say that the most common mistake I see is that students write, I mean, just in writing in general is too vague in a sense, because okay, so think about personal statement and the statement of purpose where Carissa just went over a lot of detail that you have to respond. It is very common, like think about it, like 200-300 students applying to the same program or even more than that, right? Applying to the same program. A lot of them might share kind of similar experience. If you keep your answer too vague, it's very easy for the admission committee to overlook your statement because you'll just be very similar to somebody else, right? There will be other students who are also first generation students. There will be students who are facing financial difficulties. There will also be students like say me, like who are international students, right? And so there will be students definitely have some kind of similar background than you. When you respond to those personal statements, keep it personal, right? Make it more personal. When you write it, make it more personal. The language you use, make it more specific. Right, coming from a low income family, you might have different experiences than other, or how you see your background, right? So like how you would describe your background will be different than others. So make it as personal as possible. So that would be like one thing I would definitely say. And it's more like in terms of writing. So when you first begin to write, when you think about the outline, like what are some of the key things you want to talk about, you can keep it broad. But when you later on to tailor it down to yourself, right, as your own personal statement, you want to be more specific, more personal, so you can easily to build that type of connection with whoever is reading your application. So that would be one of the common mistakes. The second one is I noticed it's also a type of writing style, I would say, is that when you write graduate applications and personal statement of purpose, you want to write a lot of stuff, right? 1,000 words seems long, but if you really have a lot going on, or like if you wanted to talk about some of the issues in detail, it's likely it's not enough words. Then you're trying to crunch a lot of stuff in that 2-3 pages. What I would suggest is that make each sentence more concise. Like leave out, like try to read the sentences. Say if some of the sentences can be left out without changing what are you trying to convey others, then leave it out, right? So like make it more concise and easy to read. So making sure it's definitely easy to read for people. Okay, so that would be like the 2 most common mistakes that I would say in terms of statement of purpose and personal statement.
Awesome. That was really helpful. And absolutely, totally would agree with you. Our second question is, what helped you in finding your personal narrative and communicating your fit to the programs you applied to? And if maybe you can share some of the other programs that you applied to besides UCI
Yeah,
as well.
yeah. So I applied to different programs. And so when I initially applied it to PhD program, I applied as like emphasis in social movements. So you always want to know the emphasis of different programs. Say for instance, there are sociology program, but different sociology program have different emphasis. If you want to apply to business school, right? So MBA program, different MBA program actually have different emphasis, even though they're all focusing on business, right? So you wanted to look at their website and knowing what they're actually focused on. So if you're looking at the first page of our sociology website, you will tell you what type of scholars that we have, what type of work we mainly do, right? So you can kind of get a sense at what we're good at as a sociology department. You also wanted to like look at other programs that they might be emphasizing on different things, especially for master program, right? They might offer different classes. So you also want to look at the class schedule as well. So sometimes the school will list their tentative class schedule for the master level, right? So you can know what type of things that you will learn in those programs. So when you actually write your paper, you can say, hey, I'm actually interested in this. Like when I read my research personal statement, I would say like, or statement of purpose, I say my research area is interested in this, and your program is actually strong in this. You have multiple faculties who are working on those type of area, right? At the same time, you offer this type of courses, which can strengthen my ability to conduct this type of research in the future. So that is how you would find the fit. And I'm trying to communicate fit is really just like matching your personal interest with whatever they're mentioning on the website in a sense, or with their faculty. So this is how you kind of trying to find the fit and then communicate your fit.
Yeah, and I think that definitely goes back to, knowing that no 2 programs are the same, and it's really about tailoring your statements to fit that each program. Unfortunately, copying and pasting a statement for all of your programs that you're applying to is not going to work. So I definitely think, those are really great advice. Thank you.
Can I just add on that?
Of
So
course.
in some sense, it does work. The reason why is because your larger structure stays the same, right? Like whatever you're interested in stays the same. However, definitely it's not, you cannot do copy and paste when you describe the fit. So there will be like specific 1 or 2 paragraphs you will describe your fit to this program as well as to the school. So those are the things that you have to tailor. But with other sections on you describe your interest, research interest, and your personal background, those are the things that you can certainly copy and paste in a sense. So yeah, I just want to add that.
Yeah, no, thank you for clarifying. Awesome. Yeah. Okay, so third question is there anything you wish you knew before starting the graduate school application process?
So with the application process, I think I didn't have a lot of questions, or even like looking back right now, I feel like I did the most of the stuff. The reason why is because, well, which I can share is what you can do is to, like Carissa said, use all the resources on campus. I actually attended a different workshop that hosted by SARC before. And I actually talked to my faculty members. So whoever you ask gonna write your letter of recommendation, you can also ask them to read your personal statement and statement of purpose. That is one thing that a lot of students don't ask their faculty member to do for them. Sometimes the faculty, you can just say, I won't want you to help me edit anything, but everything. I just want you to give me some kind of like broad general opinion, like say, I don't think your argument is too strong. Maybe you want to change this. So like some broad comments the faculty can definitely give you. And then in addition, if they're the one who write you a letter of recommendation, they actually would want to read your statement and a personal statement, statement of purpose. So that actually helps them to write you a letter. So that's something that you can do. So I also got help from my faculty member to read my statement, and I was lucky enough the faculty actually helped me edit it a lot. Other than that, and I think it's important to know the timeline of the graduate application statement. So I know a lot of people spend a lot of time on preparing for the GRE. I understand GRE is important, but at the same time, I would say preparing for statement of purpose and personal statement are more important than the GRE. So you want to use more time to writing those two letters compared to preparing for GRE. There is a lot that you can justify in words compared to just a score. So those are some main things I think it's important to know when you are applying to graduate school.
Absolutely. And I think oftentimes, at least right now, a lot of programs don't really care for any entrance exams. Sometimes they're changing their policies and making it optional as well. So statements definitely are very powerful in being able to communicate you and your fit. But thank you for answering those questions, Lingo. Now we're actually going to go ahead and open up the floor for your questions. So please continue to submit them through the Q&A. Looks like we have one. Oh, okay, yes. We have an individual that asks, what is the active voice? So active voice just means that things are in present tense, right? They're not past tense. So you're doing it actively. So this just kind of, again, makes your sentences a little bit more clear and concise in terms of like the timeline that you've kind of done certain things. But I don't know if, Lingo, if you have any other comments on that at all.
Yeah, I would say like, don't be afraid to put like, I did some, or I often do something in there. I did this program. I helped with collecting data, like writing when I was a research assistant for a professor, right? So like, don't be afraid to use I in there. It's all about you, right? Like you have to describe your experience. So use I in there, make it like you actively trying to do something. So yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so looks like we got another question in. How are the UCI career pathway writing services available to alumni? So that's a really great question. I'm not quite sure about the writing center. That's probably something that you'll have to contact them individually about. But with the career pathways, they do have alumni service packages. So this is something that you would have to pay for. However, if you are a recent alum, you do have all of their services or most of their services for free up to a year after your graduation date and year. So wherever you are, if you are a recent alum, please continue to use their services up to a year. And then if you are interested in continuing those services, it will cost. I'll see if I can try to find that link for you so that way you can look into that. But that's a really great question. Just to kind of add on to that, if you're looking for resources and maybe let's say you've graduated 2-3 years and you decide that, okay, I'm ready to go to graduate school, please know that you can always use SARC. We don't charge for any of our services if you're an alumni, so we always welcome you back with open arms. If you're a social science major, or if you don't identify as a social science major, that's okay too. We're always open to helping out students and our alumni. So great question. Another question that we got in is, how important is the resume when submitting grad applications? So would you like to answer that, Lingo, or from your experience?
Yeah, I would say it is important. How important is, I'm not, because it's just more concise version to describe your experiences. So you might want to tailor it a little bit different than when you are writing your resume to work, right? So if you have research experience more, you want to put that up compared to your work experience. So I would say drafting, it will definitely take you some time to draft it, and then thinking about where to place different elements that are different from a job application. So it is important, but I wouldn't say it's as important as, like, definitely not as important as GRE and as well as personal statement and statement of purpose.
Yeah, it's definitely like supplementary material. Most programs will ask for resumes. Some programs, like PhD programs, will ask for something called a curriculum vitae, also known as a CV. It's just a longer version of a resume that includes like your research experiences, maybe any publications, and other kind of sections that you can include, and pretty much everything that you've done. So yes, very important. And it's always great to just continue to update those documents like every year or every couple months, just to kind of keep updated with that. But good question. All right, so next question we have is, do PhD programs have a preference for students that have a master's degree over a bachelor's degree? That's a really great question. I don't know if you'll be able to address this, Lena. Go
So
ahead.
I don't think admissions have a preference over master for master over a bachelor. The only reason why master will be, in cases where master will be more competitive, is the master program do give them an extra year of doing some type of research, right? So they do have something more to write about. For instance, they have to complete their own thesis in a master program. So they would say, you know, I did some X, Y, and Z in this type of master program. But you are basically from the same kind of a candidate pool compared to the bachelor degree. For instance, when I was in when I was in undergrad, I did the honors program, right? And I did a research assistant. So I might not have like too like very in-depth experience and then the master students, but I did do research. I have some basic understanding of it. And once I enter the program, we are taking the same class, right? So we're basically on the same level. So basically, I think they won't prefer it. The only reason why is because they might have 1 year more of research experience or something like that. But when you apply, if you already did a lot of things in your bachelor, in your undergrad, that is actually really good. That's something that you can talk about. Yeah, so I don't necessarily think there is a preference. It's just the time difference that gives them more experience. So yeah.
Yeah, and to follow up on that, Lingo, with your particular PhD program, or for a lot of PhD programs, you're often getting your master's along the way as
Oh,
you
right,
are kind of continuing the PhD
right.
program.
Yeah,
So
so for same for my program, we're getting the master along the way. So like they don't say, you know, master is a prerequisite or anything. So even if you get a master program, when you enter our program, for instance, you still have to take the same amount of classes as everybody else. So
awesome, thank you. All right, so the next question we have is, I was wondering how you identified and wrote about your research interests in your graduate school statement.
okay, so so there are two ways I would describe this first, then I talk about how I identified. So first of all, you definitely wanted to kind of identify it as like what you're interested in, right? Like even though writing about your research interest, like if you say, oh, I want to do gender related stuff in your research statement, and once you enter graduate school, you change it to somebody else or something else, like say I'm interested in racial or like employment, stuff like that. Nobody cares. So you can definitely change once you join the PhD program. So when you are writing your personal statement early on and you can already identify what you're really interested in, that would be great, right? Maybe you have been a research assistant for some professors who are doing I don't know, like psychology, child development research, and you want to do that in the future. That actually helps you write a little bit more, right? Because you have this type of experience, you know how to talk about those issues. But for me though, I actually did honors thesis, but my honors thesis has nothing to do when I applied. I applied it as in social movements. The reason why is that I really want to apply to UCI and other school, and I actually really don't know too clear about what I want to do in the future. And my faculty advisor is strong, like his emphasis was in social movements. That's why I wrote about social movements. So I kind of think about a topic that I'm interested in the field of social movements. For instance, I was interested in LGBT social movements, right? So I actually wrote about it around LGBT social movements. So I definitely read about it, get to know about it a little bit more to be able to write that statement. But I have to say, I was kind of a little bit opportunistic because my faculty member is that, so I wrote that. But once I enter the program, I start to take a little bit more courses. I feel like I'm not interested in that area anymore. So that's why I switched to gender and family. So yeah, you can identify it based on your actual interests, right? Or based on your research experience, or you can be a little bit strategic to form your interest based on the program that you are applying to. Okay.
Thank you. All
Yeah.
right. So next question is, what tips, suggestions do you have for someone with a lower GPA applying to grad school?
Okay. I think it is important to talk about why, right? So like if your GPA is really low, it's because of one or two courses or what happened in one quarter, definitely talk about it in your personal statement, right? So like use that as a chance to justify why you had a lower GPA. And then you can also show them, right? Like with your other parts was good at like, right? It is only because something happened. That's why you got a lower GPA. So you won't be a too big of a issue as long as you justified it. But if your GPA, like I have to be realistic, if your GPA is really, really low, like say 2.0, trying to apply PhD program, you will be very hard to make it to the line because they might have a cutoff line for some programs. But you should look into different schools and then kind of see some school will say, on average, our admitted students have a GPA of what, right? So you can kind of get a sense at their GPA level. There is also a website called gradcafe.com will tell you people who get admitted from previous years, and then sometimes they will show their GPA. So you can also get a sense at their GPA as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And yeah, absolutely. Sometimes I think programs will have like a supplemental essay where you can kind of insert those reasons why maybe your GPA was low or certain classes. So absolutely. Okay, so next question that we have is, some programs ask for a writing sample. Would an honors thesis suffice as this, or would you recommend to re-edit the thesis if your views have changed?
Yeah, so I think honors thesis would definitely be sufficient enough as a writing sample. I would recommend to re-edit, just re-edit the length, like grammars and stuff like that. So like just copy editing if you have a full paper already. I'm not really sure what you mean by your views, because I mean, if you have a results, right, it shouldn't change that much once you start once you finished it. But definitely having some copy editing of that writing sample is important. So just make sure they don't have like some basic grammar errors. So yeah.
Great, thank you. Now this question here, it looks like it's a little bit more specific. So what do I need to do to be in a child development program? So I can go ahead and kind of start that off. No matter what your program you're interested in, or master's, PhD, whatever it might be, much of the graduate school process is pretty much the same in terms of the components of it. Specifically the actual application itself, the application fee, your transcripts, letters of recommendation, your resume, curriculum vitae, your statements. So essentially all that is pretty much the same in order to apply to any type of program. In terms of like specifically child development program, I think what is helpful is to just search for those types of programs that you might be interested in and actually read what the program is requiring. Some programs might require prerequisites in order to apply, like very niche, master's programs, like for example, language science or something like that. So make sure that you meet all or any prerequisites that there might be. And then of course, to show that you are a great fit, look for opportunities that help you build upon those transferable skills that you would be using as maybe a child development specialist, for example, or an educator, whatever your interest might be. And again, we'd be happy to help you at SARC to kind of identify what those programs are here in California or out of state. So definitely feel free to reach out to us and we'll kind of tell you a little bit more about how to do so. I don't know, Flingo, you have any other comments in terms of just applying to various programs?
Well, my own comments would be like, if you're thinking about applying, just looking at a lot of their own website, because their website actually have more detailed information, and then whether they have prerequisite or not. So like definitely for each of the school you want to apply, have a spreadsheet and list out all their requirements. Some school requires 2-letter recommendation, some school requires 3, some school requires GRE, some school does not, some school requires working experience, some school does not, right? So you want to have a spreadsheet to take down all the information from all the programs that you want to apply to. So it's easier actually for you to organize, later on as well as the application process build up, right? So.
Yeah, and here at SARC, we do have a graduate school timeline that you can follow and our letter recommendations guide that we'll be sending out after the webinar as well. Speaking about letters of recommendation, it looks like we have a question about them. Do your letters of recommendation play a big part in your admissions? So for example, their background and profession.
Yes, so your letter of recommendation is definitely important in your application. So for especially like when you're applying to a master program or PhD program, you want to find someone who actually you get an A right in their class, right? So who can write you a really good letter. In addition to that, I would say if you want to apply to a PhD program, you want to look for someone who is in a research position rather than a teaching position, right? So if you go to a different UCI website and to look at faculty, sometimes they will say they're just in the teaching professor, they're not associate or assistant professor or something like that. So that means they're on the teaching track. That means they're not really involved in research anymore. So when you apply, they might not talk too much about your research experience or their research professions and things like that. So those are some of the things you want to look out for when you apply and when you ask for letter of recommendations. So one thing so to say is that not only need to get good score from that faculty's class, you also want to try to attend their office hours a little bit more, right? Just so that it can be a little bit more familiar with you. At least you attend 2 or 3, so they can actually write you a letter and say, you're dedicated coming to office hours. We actually communicated a couple of times. So yeah, so they can get to know you a little bit more. So it does play a big part in the admission.
Awesome, thank you. And yeah, definitely, be sure if you haven't made those connections with faculty yet, like make that a goal this upcoming academic year to really get connected with your faculty, go to their office hours, just meet with them virtually or in person, hopefully, and get to know them a little bit better and their research as well. So looks like we've got caught up with all of our questions here, but if anyone else has any more additional questions, feel free to continue to put them in the Q&A. Oh, great, we did get one more. Is it appropriate to reach out to graduate school professors for the schools I plan on applying to, specifically to express interest and discuss their current areas of research and discuss the grad program as well?
Yes, I think, I don't think I actually did it because it was a lot if I actually connected with everyone, and I was really busy my last year with my honors program too. So it is not necessary for you to reach out, but if you have the time and if you have someone you really, really want to talk to, definitely reaching out to them would help, because sometimes they might be serving on the committee, right? They can actually say, this is the students I want to work with. So, and then also in addition, talking to those professors, you actually know whether they will be taking any students at that moment, because sometimes there will be professor already taking on a couple of students. They might say, I might not take on the advisee anymore. So, you can get to know that a little bit better. So when you are writing your statement, you won't be like awkward, right? Like it turns out they won't teach anymore. They actually will switch to a different school. That actually happens, right? So like sometimes the professor's name will still be on the website, but they're not at UCLA anymore. They're at UCLA next year, right? So sometimes those situations will happen. So make sure you know the what is going on, and you can actually talk to them. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really great point. Thank you. We have an interesting question. So I really admire one distinguished alumni from Penn, but I admire him for his valor and courage more than academic achievement. Is it okay in the personal statement? So I'm assuming this is an alumni, so not a faculty, but I don't know if you have any comments about talking about an alumni. Yeah.
Right. If that is your personal statement, I think that's fine. Right. Like you can, but then you have to talk about why, right? So like why admiring him for everything encourage you, or like made you who you are, right? You don't want to just describe him. Like, why is him important to make you the person who you are in a personal statement? In terms of academic achievement, like in terms of statement of purpose, you don't want to use this type of example because you kind of need to be academic related a little bit in your statement of purpose. So yeah, that would be my suggestion for that. So
Yeah, I mean, this person can definitely maybe have inspired you to like go into that field or inspired you to apply to that particular program if if they're an alum of that particular program. So yeah, if they're definitely a person that inspires you or motivates you, absolutely, definitely just to
right.
follow up on that.
And that definitely depends on like how you write about it. So like, you can write about it and then you can come to SARC, we can talk about, or we can kind of revise it later on. So yeah.
Absolutely. So other question we have is, what if I don't have a specific research interest prior to graduate school admission?
You need to fake one. So I would say it's definitely important because you don't want to say, I wanted to go into business school without saying what in particular you're interested in that, right? Or like, I want to go into sociology without specifying, because all those fields are big. So you kind of need to, even though you don't really know anything about that right now, you can kind of do a little bit of research, get to know a little bit more, think about some issues that are pressing that requires people to think about an answer. So you kind of need to fake one in a sense, or like just come up with one. It sounds hard, but I think you can definitely talk to, like, say, us at the SARC or your TA, whoever your TA who teaches you in that field that you want to go into, right? So for instance, you want to go into economics, and then you can talk to TAs who are teaching economic courses, just ask them a little bit more about the field and ask them a little bit more about what they do, right? So to get inspired a little bit. But yeah, you definitely need one. So yeah.
Yeah, and to follow up, I think this also really depends on the program you're applying to, because maybe the program you're applying to isn't really research heavy at all. And so maybe it might not be even necessary to, talk
Right.
about
But if it's
research.
not research focused, well, I guess that what I mean is what field you want it to be in, right? So even with like a lot of practical program, there are different things that you wanted to focus on. For instance, like psychology, there are clinical psychology, right? Those are actually not research focused. Those might be more practical. But what type of clinical psychology that you wanted to go into, you do want to talk about that. So so you might not be research interest. It's just like your specific field that you want to focus on. So yeah.
Great, thank you. All right, so looks like that is all of our questions that we have for today. And I know that we're, approaching the 1 hour time. So I do want to share a little bit more information about how you can get in contact with SARC. So let me go ahead and share my screen here. Okay, so please know that SARC is open virtually Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Feel free to reach out to us by making a consultation appointment with us. You can do so at sarc.soci.edu. You can also just email us at sarc@uci.edu or follow us on social media if you are not already. We're on Instagram and Facebook at UC Irvine SARC. We also encourage you to RSVP for our next webinar, which is all about the leadership opportunities that are available to you in the School of Social Sciences. That's going to be July 20th at 3 p.m. So feel free to scan the screen right here. But of course, we really just want to kind of just thank you, Lingo, for partnering with us and being here today. I know during your summer, which is technically our graduate student advisors have that off with SARC. But any other last minute advice or comments for our students looking into applying to grad school?
Yeah, actually, I mean, this will be just an advertisement for SARC as well. So I think for those of you who are actually thinking about applying for the next academic year, right, entering in 2022 fall semester, you should be start to preparing for those statements and that we just talked about. I think it would be great for you to pull out to draft a first draft during the summer. And when you come back in the fall, we can definitely work together, schedule a one-on-one appointment at the SARC. We can work on it together. So yeah, that will just be my advice for those who are applying next year.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much. And thank you everyone for being here today. I hope you enjoy the rest of your summer. Take care. Bye.
Bye.